Welcome back to another video. My name is Henrik and today we're going to be looking at the Hyundai Inster. And the one thing I like about this video is that we have it standing here in the base variant, so the cheapest one. You can get this car at fully spec'd at around 32,020 euros. The car that we have here only has two extras. The Abyss black color on here for 507 euros and also the efficiency package. So you get a heat pump and you can also precondition the car for 1,000 euros extra. So the way it's standing here around 25,470 euros. Still very compact and well, cheap car. If you use this mainly as a city car, then you can also get some good leasing options at around 199 euros. From Hyundai, 299 with everything inclusive, meaning also repairs and also your insurance. Otherwise, this is also the first compact electric car from Hyundai, and we're going to look at everything that this offers. We've already driven the Dacia Spring, which is quite a lot, well, cheaper. Video on the top right corner if you do want to check that out. Other competitors, Fiat Grande Pande, which is the electric one, which came out recently, a little bit more expensive, and also the Citroën EC3X, or EC3, not the X variant. So we're going to look at what this car offers now. In the front, we can see that it is a fairly compact car. We have our pixel design up here, which is our in LED, just for our blinkers. Down here, if you get the base variant, you will also get halogen as your high beams, which also have automatic high beams. And we also have this surrounding here, which is your daytime light, which are going to be an LED. If you get the Trend variant, you're going to be looking at full LED. And then you can also choose between a couple options. You can get the Select, you can get the Trend, and you can also get the Intercross, which is more of an off-road kind of thing, and also the Prime being the most expensive one. When it comes to the engine variants, let's quickly look at that and open the hood. We can choose between 42 kilowatts an hour and a 49 kilowatts an hour. The question is, do you really need that? Because you can, choose between those two, but it's going to cost you around 1,500 euros extra. Starting with the Intercross, or the top two variants, you're only going to be able to choose the top two variants of the battery, so the 49 kilowatts an hour. You can see we do not have a frunk in the front, which is a little bit unfortunate. Would have been nice if you could maybe put a frunk in here, but it's just not enough space to put one in there. The Dacia Spring, for instance, you can get an aftermarket. Well, nowadays with the facelifted or the new model, it does have a frunk in the front, but we do not. When it comes to the battery size, like I said, 42 and 49, you can charge those two at different speeds. You can charge it up in the front right here, which is going to allow you to charge it at 73 if you get the lower variant, so 73 kilowatts, and the higher one at around 85 kilowatts. Do you really need that? Well, most of the times, because you're using it as a city car, you're only going to be charging it at home, and for longer distance you might want to charge it, but then both of them are going to be at around 30 minutes from 10 to 80%, so it really doesn't matter too much. With the smaller variant, you're going to be looking at a range of around 327 kilometers, with the higher one around 370 kilometers, so a little bit more. And if you're driving on the Autobahn, you're going to be looking for the lower variant, top speed of 140, with the higher one 150. 0 to 100 for the lower one around 11.6, I think, and or 11.7, somewhere right around there, and the lower one 10.6, so a little bit faster. But do you really need it? Not much. This already has enough power. We're going to be looking at 97 horsepower for the smaller battery and 115 for the higher one, with each of them having 140 Newton meters. Do you really need more for the city or for general driving? Not really. We'll see that once we're driving here in a second, that it's quite enough. When it comes to the side here, you can choose between 15 up to 17-inch rims. We have the smallest variant here, so we are going to be looking at just wheel caps on here with 15-inch rims, which still look, well, they don't look brilliant, but I think they do a good job. We have this black surrounding here all the way, blinkers on the side, automatically foldable side mirrors, and one thing that's also pretty nice is we actually have keyless entry even in the base variant. So you can see I can press the button, it's going to open and close. Obviously not in the back. We have in the back the same opening function that we have, for instance, in a Renault Clio. So you can do this. Also doesn't sound bad. One thing that's also nice, we get a different key. I'm personally not a fan of the new Hyundai kind of keys, but I think this one does look good. I'd kind of like this if this would be on most of the models. When it comes to the size of the car, like I said, fairly compact. Wide 1.61 m, tall 1.57 m, wheelbase of 2.58 m, and we also have a length of 3.82 m. You can on the top put 75 kilograms of roof capacity. If you get the Intercross or Instacross, you're going to be looking at, well, a couple of different values throughout the car because it's a more of an off-roady one. And also in the rear, we have, again, this typical Hyundai pixel design, which you find throughout, well, most Hyundai models. Down here, we also have a replica of what we have in the front, basically, for a light, which looks good. And again, pixel design down here, and it's a little bit of a different design. Otherwise, even in the standard variant, you already get a rear view camera, which will obviously look at once we're inside. Let's look at what we get in the storage space capacity here. Well, we got a boot that goes fairly far down, so 238 liters up to 351. And if you flip over all the seats, 1,059 liters. Those were two values. I know we had two different values, so I'll have to see which one is correct in the edit afterwards. One thing that's also pretty cool, if you get the Trend, for instance, well, starting with the Trend, you're going to be flipping, or you're going to be able to flip over all the seats, which means you can basically put a mattress in the back here. That's also one thing they claim. You can put a mattress in there and sleep. If you're home alone, your wife kicked you out, you don't have to sleep on the couch, you can sleep in your Inster. Isn't that something great? And now sitting in the back, you will definitely notice that, well, the battery is below the floor. You can see if I'm sitting straight, my upper thigh is going to be, well, fairly high off the ground, but I can put them fairly good below the seat in front of me, adjusted to me, 5'11" or 1m80. And the seats in front of are also a little bit of squishy ones, so I can put my knees in there a little bit more if you are a little bit of a taller person. When it comes to headroom, I have around this much space, I don't know, 6-7 centimeters, somewhere around there. Seats are also fairly comfortable. You have ISOFIX points here in the back. You will not be able to sit in the center. There is no way that you can, well, basically you could theoretically sit in here, but you do not have a seat belt that you're going to be able to sit there. But otherwise, a fairly comfortable seating position. You will obviously notice price-wise, it is fairly cheap in the back. Nothing you'd not expect in this class. Everything is basically plastic in there. And one thing you will also notice, water bottles are not going to fit down here, nor up here. Therefore, water bottles are going to be moving around in the center. And you also don't have a center console. You have no USB-Cs or anything like that with the base variant. Starting with the Trend, or the Select actually, with the Trend, we have the Select standing here. You get an armrest in the center. I'm not too sure if you do get USB-Cs in the back then. I'll let you know in the post if we do. And join me now on the inside of the Hyundai Inster. You can see we have the basic variant here. You can see that because we don't have, for instance, a center tunnel, so center console. You get that with the Trend variant. Otherwise, we have this in the inside here. We have an automatic climate console, AC, and, well, in general, I think a decent layout. We have a little bit of storage space down here. Up here we have a USB-A and also USB-C, as well as a 12-volt in there, and a little bit more storage space here with also your glove compartment. Up here, obviously, your airbag. We have our infotainment display, which is, well, fairly compact and simple to use. Navigation in there, obviously, you can use that, and you can zoom out and in whatever you want. It's going to work fairly nice. And what it also shows you, if you, for instance, go into EV, you can see a range. We have around 39 kilometers now, which would give us 98 kilometers of range. We'll look at the average consumption here we had in a second. And if you also zoom out, for instance, you can see how far you'd theoretically get with that current charge. Okay, maybe it's not going to show on here, but it did just a second ago. There we go. Well, if I go back. There you go. It'll show you that circle of how far you'd theoretically get with 98 kilometers, but that's, well, very, very rough estimate. Otherwise, we can also pair our phone with, well, Bluetooth, and we can also obviously plug it in via USB. Once we've started up the car here, you can see obviously no engine sound. We have an electric car. If we go into the reversing view, we can see we do also in the standard variant get a rear view camera, which is quite nice. It doesn't look the highest quality, but still for the price not bad, and even trajectory lines which move with your steering input. Otherwise, let's start moving. And one thing that is actually quite nice about this car is the turning circle. In the city, that's one of the main things you're going to be looking at. We're looking at around 10.4 meters in here, or 10.6 meters, which is completely fine for this car and gives you a good, well, maneuverability in the city. We do also have the steering wheel, which is typical, well, Hyundai steering wheel with all physical buttons and your drive modes on the left side, which I always like. We got our digital cockpit up in the front, where we can change much. We can go through the different views here in the center, and on the side, if you change the drive modes, we have sport, snow, and also eco and normal. It will change a little bit, or you can go into your settings, and you can go into your, not into your car. That's also the EU warning assist, theme layout, theme, and then we can go into the cube, which is going to be a little bit of a different design. Well, maybe because the Insta is a little bit of a cube. I've never seen that before in any electric cars from Hyundai, but that's about it. Otherwise, EU warning assist, simply with Hyundai, press down on the volume button for around 3 seconds. It's going to turn off, and that's about it for that. That's not going to warn you anymore. Well, it's going to warn you, but it's not going to do that annoying beeping sound. When we're driving in the city, one thing you will definitely notice is in the view out the front, it looks a little bit compact because, for instance, we have our infotainment display here, and right above it we have like 20 centimeters of space is our rear view mirror, and above that is all black. So it feels a little bit compact in here and not such a great view out the front, but otherwise, if you look out the back and surrounding view is fairly decent. There's not much to complain about there. With the rear view camera and parking sensors, you're going to be looking fairly nicely in the city, and you're not going to have much issues with a parking spot. Like, I definitely fit in there right there, even though, or maybe even this one, I definitely fit in there because it's just a compact car, and that's what I like about this car. The EV function, or the general drivetrain in here, is also quite nice. We do have those two different engine variants, so 97 and also that 115 horsepower, which will obviously give you a little bit of more punch, around a second less of 0 to 100, but you really don't need it. And I've heard from some others that also have driven the more powerful one, you really can't tell the difference between those, well, horsepower difference. And the thing is, if you're just using it as a city car, you're really not going to need that too much, because when are you really going to accelerate apart from overtaking? And when you're overtaking with this car, I still think it's quite a good amount of punch to get you to overtake. We'll look at here in a second how fast we can get up to speed a little bit. And when you're mainly in the city, one thing that is always quite nice is to have blind spot assistance. We do not have it on this edition right here. If you get a different variant, you will be able to get that. Otherwise, it's really well equipped with, well, adaptive cruise or safety features in general. We have adaptive cruise control, which you can select even in the base variant, which is quite nice already. We have lane departure assist. We have quite a lot of safety features, which will just give you a good experience, even if you're driving on the Autobahn, because we do also have that HDA 1.5 in here, so that Hyundai Autobahn assistance. You can obviously also change the recuperation. Down there you can see how strong that is. With the pedals in the back, you will be able to change it to iPedal, which is basically your full one-pedal driving experience. If I go off the gas now, it will slow down fairly quickly. I personally like to keep it a little bit higher, and if you completely turn it off, it's not going to have recuperation anymore. Right around there is my kind of sweet spot. When it comes to the range, we're currently looking at 96 kilometers of range left at around, I think it's at 39%. Our average consumption is currently 17.4 over the last 150 kilometers. Claimed is around a 14.3 up to a 14.9. However, this car has just today been driven as, well, a press car, kind of a test drive event, so everyone is going to drive it a little bit more sporty, and it's also a fairly hilly area here at the Frankfurt area, so therefore the consumption is going to be a little bit higher, as well as winter tires. I think you can definitely get it down quite a lot more. So currently we're looking at around 250 kilometers in the current condition that we have on here, when you have the car fully charged, which I still think is not bad, because if you're mainly using it in the city, you're only going to be charging it overnight, and then you really don't need that much range. Get to work back, maybe 60 kilometers, depending on your work distance. So we have a fairly busy, well, roundabout here. If I just want to accelerate a little bit there, I mean, that's already quite a good punch. You can see I'm just accelerating quite nicely. And that's the thing about electric cars. They get that punch, and for a small city car, that's exactly what you're kind of missing, well, not always, but what you're missing with a combustion engine car, because you're not going to have that instant torque, that instant power. And that's the nice thing about the electric car. You're always going to have that. You can just punch it here. It's going to be 70 now. If I go to the floor, that acceleration, we're up to 70. It's quite quick. Even for 97 horsepower, the car only weighing in at around 1.4 tons is completely fine for this. Even if you're trying to accelerate somebody that's going a little bit slower, maybe 60 in a 80 zone, easily overtake it. No problem at all. And that's the thing I like about this car. It's, even in the base variant, completely fine with the powertrain. And also, one thing I gotta say is the suspension in here is really, well, it's not really nice, but it smoothens out quite decently and gives you a good experience when driving. The other thing that's also good, even at 100 kilometers an hour, the isolation in here, again, very decent, and you're not gonna have much problems talking and, well, having to speak up quite a lot. So what is my final verdict on the Hyundai Inster? I think it's a very good car, the way it's standing here. The only thing that I'm not a big fan of is the view out the front. A little bit of a congested view in there. Otherwise, a compact car, a great car for the city. Fairly decent price there. If you've compared to the Dacia Spring, the only car I have driven from the main competitors, you will definitely notice the price difference and the quality increase in there. Good drivetrain, I like the power output, I like the way it drives, even good isolation. General, even for the Select variant, a good standard equipment, and in general, a fairly compact, nice driving experience, and, well, a good all-rounder for the city. What do you think of the car? Let me know in the comments, and let me know what you think of this car. I just said that. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.